Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a question that's probably on your mind, especially as you think about your own futures. Is the University of Tomorrow going to be a physical campus or a digital cloud? This whole explainer is designed for your Environnement contemporain course to help us tackle that very question, exploring how technology is literally reshaping higher education as we speak. So let's kick things off with a tweet that really stirred the pot. A student from Barnard, a top American college, wrote this, comparing the super elite Ivy League to the University of Phoenix, which is this huge online university. You know, this single sentence just nails the whole debate we're having today. Is technology making elite education accessible for everyone, which is great? Or is it just watering it down? So here's our game plan. First, we'll set the scene and see exactly why this topic matters for your course. Then, we're going to look at the incredible promise of technology in education. But after that, we have to look at the other side, the pretty serious risks. And most importantly, we'll get you set up with the tools you need to build a really powerful argument for your exams. Finally, we'll look ahead to what the future of knowledge might actually hold. Let's get started.
All right, part one, the university disrupted. Let's start by setting the stage for all this change. Now, this topic fits perfectly into your AMC curriculum. I mean, it is right at the very heart of the theme savoir, création et innovation, and specifically the accès, production et circulation des savoirs. What we're doing here is literally watching the rules for how knowledge is made and shared get totally rewritten by technology in real time. So, this brings us to our big question for the day, our problématique. How successfully can new technologies really enable universities to meet the challenges of the future? This is the core question we're going to be wrestling with today, and it's exactly the kind of complex question you'll be expected to tackle in your exams. To really get why this is such a big disruption, we first need to understand the tradition. For centuries, especially in places like the UK and the US, the gold standard has been residential education. You know, picture those old stone buildings, living on campus, debating ideas with your friends late into the night. It's about so much more than just going to lectures. It's about being completely immersed in this culture of learning. And then e-learning basically crashed the party. All of a sudden, the university wasn't a place you had to go to. It was something you could just access from anywhere, right through a screen. And so right now, these two completely different ideas of what a university is, a physical place versus a digital space, are colliding. Okay, section 2, technology's great promise. Now let's dig into the argument for technology. This is the optimistic view, right? The thesis that we're in the middle of a digital revolution that could make education better than it has ever been. You know, e-learning was already growing, but the COVID-19 pandemic was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Suddenly, it wasn't just an option anymore. It was a total necessity. Almost overnight, pretty much every university on the planet had to go online. And this huge, forced experiment really showed us what technology is truly capable of. And what we saw were some really clear advantages. As you can see, distances they disappeared. A world-class professor in Boston could teach students in Paris and Sydney all at the same time. A leading scientist could pop in for a guest lecture without ever leaving her lab. It was like the walls of the university just vanished, making education way more global and accessible for so many more people. And here's an example of just how futuristic this can all get. Take a look at this project at Coventry University in the UK. Instead of looking at flat diagrams of the human body in a textbook, medical students are using 5G and virtual reality to interact with 3D holographic models. They can actually perform simulated surgery, making mistakes safely and really learning by doing. It's a huge shift from just passive observation to active, real-world problem solving. But it's not all positive. For every incredible promise, there's a potential problem. So now, let's look at the other side of the coin, the antithesis, the human cost of a university that's all digital. So here's the crucial point. Critics argue that when e-learning is designed poorly, it just reduces education to transferring information. It replaces that empathy and personal connection of a real classroom with these passive, clicky modules and drag-and-drop exercises. The focus shifts away from working together to solve problems to just getting the task done by yourself. And the concerns, well, they don't stop there. We're seeing a huge rise in cheating and plagiarism on online exams. There are massive cybersecurity risks. And what about the ethics of it all? I mean, who owns the recording of your lecture? And can cramming for an online quiz ever replace true, deep understanding? These are some serious unintended consequences we have to think about. This quote from a TED Talk by Dr. Aaron Barth really gets to the heart of this critique. He argues that real learning is human.
It's about connecting with ideas through stories and conversations, not just being talked at through a computer screen.
Section 4, building your argument. Okay, so we've seen both sides of the debate. Now, let's get really practical. How do you turn all of this into a top-scoring argument for the baccalaureate? Because, let's be honest, knowing the facts is only half the battle.
This 3-step process, this is your secret weapon. For every single point you want to make, this is a structure to follow. Number 1, state your idea. Number 2, back it up with a specific example, like that Coventry VR project or Dr. Barth's powerful quote. And 3, explain why that example proves your idea. Idea, example, explanation. It's that simple, but believe me, it is incredibly effective. And here is some key vocabulary to make your arguments sound sharp and precise. Think of this as your lexical toolkit. So if you're arguing for technology, talk about immersive learning or bridging the digital divide. If you're arguing against it, use precise terms like academic misconduct or passive learning. Using this specific language really shows the examiner you understand the nuances of the debate. Okay, last section, the future of knowledge. So, where does that leave us? We've got the amazing potential of technology on one hand and these very serious human risks on the other. Let's try to find a balanced path forward, a synthesis. The smartest answer to our big question isn't a simple yes or no. The future isn't a battle between technology and tradition where one has to win. No, the real goal is to create a hybrid model, one that uses these incredible new tools to amplify what makes education so valuable in the first place: human connection, creativity, and critical thinking. So as you form your own opinion on all this, remember these key points. Technology has immense potential, for sure, but we absolutely must protect what makes learning meaningful, that human dimension. The ethical challenges aren't small details. They're central to this whole debate. The goal, ultimately, is balance. So I'll leave you with one final question to think about. As we completely rethink how knowledge is produced and shared, what is the ideal university of the future? Is it a campus or a cloud? A physical place of community or a digital space of access? There's no easy answer, and honestly, your generation will be the one to help write it. Thanks so much for watching.